In the early morning hours, before most people were awake, the message was already spreading across screens, in homes, offices, and military stations. People stared at the words, unsure if it was a prank, but the tone, the authority, and the strange symbols around the text made it clear this was no joke. In Washington, the United Earth Assembly convened an emergency session. The main hall buzzed with panic and confusion. The delegates from every nation filled the room. Some whispered anxiously to each other, while others stared blankly at the main screen, which replayed the message over and over. Jacob Hart, a man in his mid-30s with short brown hair and tired eyes, was already at the Assembly's Defense Command Center. He had been a soldier all his life, and he had faced many crises on Earth, from natural disasters to political conflicts, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Are we sure it's real?" asked one of the junior officers. His voice trembled. "Yes," Jacob said firmly, standing straight. "This is real. They are not asking. They are telling us we are their enemies." He turned to Laura Price, the intelligence analyst who had been tracking unusual signals from deep space for months. She was younger, with sharp features and an analytical mind that never rested. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she replayed the transmission. "They have the technology to reach us quickly," Laura said. "They are already on their way. We can detect their fleet moving through the outer edges of the solar system. They are not coming slowly. They are coming to fight." Jacob nodded. He had been trained for situations like this, but no manual could teach a commander how to face an entire alien fleet with unknown weapons. He looked at the map of the solar system on the screen. Tiny blips represented the ships of the Zelthari Dominion, a species humans had heard of only in scattered reports from explorers and scientists. They were known for conquering other civilizations with ease. "They expect us to surrender," Jacob said quietly. "They think we are weak." Laura glanced at him. "They don't know us, Jacob. They don't understand what humans can survive. They don't know the truth about our world." The truth was simple but powerful. Humanity had not grown up on soft, easy planets. Earth was a death world in comparison to the calm, controlled environments that many other species preferred. Humanity had survived plagues, nuclear wars, extreme climates, and disasters that would have wiped out weaker species. Humans were resilient in ways the Zelthari could never imagine. Meanwhile, across the planet, ordinary people reacted in different ways. Families huddled around screens, children clinging to parents who themselves tried to stay calm. Scientists and engineers rushed to their labs, trying to understand the message, to find some weakness in the approaching enemy. News anchors repeated the message endlessly, though no words could make it seem any less terrifying. At the Horizon Command Station in low Earth orbit, Daniel Brooks, an engineer known for designing advanced propulsion and kinetic systems, was already preparing the defenses. Daniel was quiet, but brilliant, with a mind that could see patterns and solutions where others only saw chaos. His work had always been about pushing the limits of human technology, and now those limits would be tested in a way he had never imagined. "Jacob," Daniel said as he entered the room, his voice low but urgent. "We have only a few hours. Their fleet is moving faster than we expected. We need to activate the kinetic rail systems and deploy the orbital defense grids. If we don't, there won't be a second chance." Jacob nodded. "Do it. Every human on this planet is counting on us. And we cannot fail. Not today." As the human command prepared, the Zelthari fleet continued its approach. Their ships were unlike anything humans had built or seen. Sleek, enormous, and covered with strange geometric patterns, they moved through space with a confidence born from centuries of conquest. The Zelthari believed that any world they targeted would crumble under their might. They had never faced humans. Back on Earth, Laura continued analyzing the transmission. Her eyes widened as she noticed details in the communication that suggested the Zelthari were underestimating humans even more than she thought. Their language was simple, almost dismissive, and their strategy revealed arrogance. They assumed that a species from a small, blue planet could not organize a defense against a galactic empire. "They are already making a mistake," Laura said. "They think this will be easy. They think we are soft." just like their previous conquests. They don't know what it means to survive every day on a planet like Earth. They don't know how we fight when the odds are against us. Jacob looked at her, seeing determination in her eyes. Then we will show them. As night fell on Earth, the world did not sleep. People everywhere watched the skies or the news, waiting for the first signs of the Zelthari. There was fear, yes, but also a strange sense of unity. For the first time in generations, humanity faced a challenge that did not respect borders or politics. The enemy did not care about nationality, race, or wealth. It was a challenge that all humans shared equally. Jacob, Laura, and Daniel gathered in the command center as the first reports came in. Sensors detected the outermost ships of the Zelthari fleet entering the solar system, moving past Saturn and heading toward Jupiter. Their speed was incredible, faster than any human vessel could hope to match, but Earth had prepared in its own way. Jacob studied the map, thinking about strategy. They will expect us to hide, to surrender, or to fight a slow defensive battle. But we can't fight like that. We don't have the luxury of time, and we don't fight like them. We survive. That is our strength. Daniel worked quietly at the console, checking the status of the orbital kinetic weapons. Everything is online. The systems are ready, and they are tuned to operate under extreme stress. These weapons are unlike anything the Zelthari have seen. They will not expect the force and speed we can deliver. Laura analyzed communication channels again. They are talking among themselves, she said. They are confident, even mocking. They have no idea what's coming. They think humans will beg for mercy. They don't understand that humans have never begged, and never will. Far above the Earth, the Horizon Dawn, one of humanity's most advanced ships, orbited silently. Captain Samuel Blake, a veteran of human space programs, stood on the bridge. He looked out at the approaching fleet and felt a strange mixture of fear and pride. Fear because the enemy was powerful and vast. Pride because the humans he commanded had faced impossible odds before and survived. He turned to Jacob, who was consulting with Laura and Daniel. "Are we ready?" he asked. Jacob nodded. "As ready as we will ever be. But remember, Samuel, we are not just fighting with weapons. We are fighting with every bit of human resilience, every lesson from our history, every skill we learned from surviving a world that never gave us a break. They think they are attacking us. In reality, they are about to find out what humans can endure." As the Zelthari ships moved closer, lights flickered across the surface of their massive hulls, reflecting the sun in strange, sharp angles. Their weapon systems glowed faintly, ready to fire, but they did not yet know the danger that came not from technology alone, but from the species that had built it. On Earth, ordinary people continued to watch the skies and the news feeds. In small towns and cities, children asked their parents what would happen. Farmers, factory workers, students, and doctors all waited, knowing that the future of their world depended on actions taken far above their heads. Still, there was an unspoken understanding. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and they would survive again. Jacob looked at the final preparations on the screens. He took a deep breath. "We do this not because it will be easy. We do this because it must be done. We are human. We do not surrender." Laura pressed a few final keys and leaned back. "They will learn that soon enough. The moment they see our first response, they will understand the truth. We are not what they expected. We are not weak." Daniel checked the final system reports. "Everything is in place. When the time comes, there will be no mistakes. They will not have a chance to recover." As the first light of the Zelthari fleet reached the outer planets, Earth braced itself. The world held its breath. In living rooms, in offices, in bunkers and observatories, humanity waited for the first move. Fear existed, yes, but so did confidence. Confidence born from survival, from adaptability, and from the knowledge that humans were built for this in ways no other species could ever understand. Jacob stood before the main screen one last time, watching the enemy approach. "They think they are coming to conquer," he said softly. But they are coming to learn a lesson, and we are ready to teach it. The first part of humanity's response was ready, though no one yet knew the full scale of what would happen. The Zelthari had declared war, believing victory was certain. They did not know that humans had spent every day of their lives training, surviving, and preparing for moments just like this. The greatest weapon humanity possessed was not steel or energy, it was the species itself. Adaptable, fearless, and unbroken. And that weapon was about to make its first move. The Zelthari fleet had reached the outer edges of Jupiter's orbit. Their massive ships glinted under the distant sunlight, moving in tight formations. They were confident, almost arrogant. The Dominion had conquered dozens of species before, and each one had fallen quickly under their power. Now, they believed Earth would be just another easy victory. On Horizon Dawn, Jacob Hart and Captain Samuel Blake watched the approaching fleet through wide observation windows. Daniel Brooks monitored the kinetic systems and orbital defenses with quiet focus. Laura Price was at her console, analyzing enemy signals and sending countermeasures into the Zelthari communications. They are communicating constantly, Laura said. They are confident, but they are also unprepared. They don't understand our systems, and they don't expect the speed and precision we can manage. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Then we will give them a lesson they will never forget. Daniel, initiate the kinetic rail systems. Samuel, prepare the fleet for the first strike. Daniel's hands flew over the controls. The kinetic weapons were unique, designed to accelerate massive projectiles at incredible speed, using energy stored from orbital generators. The Zelthari had no defense against them. Daniel had spent months testing the system, making sure it could survive the immense gravitational forces and operate without fail under combat conditions. Everything is ready, Daniel said. Once we fire, they will not see it coming. Jacob nodded. Good. Let's begin. At that moment, the first wave of Zelthari ships came into range. They were enormous, sleek, and alien in design. But their confidence made them predictable. They advanced in tight formations, their energy weapons glowing faintly. They had not expected resistance yet, and they were preparing for a display of destruction. Jacob gave the command, fire. The kinetic rails on Horizon Dawn and several orbital stations activated. Massive projectiles, each small but faster than light beams over short distances, shot toward the Zelthari fleet. The first impact was catastrophic. A ship at the front of the formation was torn apart before it could even react. Debris scattered in all directions, and the shockwave rocked nearby vessels. Laura watched the enemy communications break apart. They are panicking, she said. Their formations are collapsing. They did not expect this. The Zelthari scrambled to respond. They fired energy beams and plasma bursts, trying to intercept the incoming projectiles. But the weapons were too fast, too powerful, and too precise. Within minutes, several more ships were disabled, their engines destroyed and their crews thrown into chaos. Jacob smiled, though he did not celebrate. Keep the pressure on. They are strong, but they are not used to a death world species. They are not ready for humans. Daniel's system continued firing. Each shot was calculated to strike the enemy where they were weakest, using patterns designed to exploit the smallest vulnerabilities in their armor. The Zelthari tried to regroup, but every move they made was anticipated by humans who had survived impossible odds on a planet that tested every ability from birth. Captain Blake turned to Jacob. They are trying to flee towards Saturn. Should we follow? Jacob shook his head. Not yet. Let them reveal their next move. Humans don't chase blindly. We strike with precision and patience. Meanwhile, on Earth, the world watched in disbelief. News broadcasts showed live feeds of the battle as humanity's orbital weapons tore through the enemy fleet. People could hardly believe their eyes. They had always feared an alien attack, but no one had imagined it could be repelled so quickly. Even the ordinary defenses, satellite arrays, orbital stations, and early warning systems were contributing. Each shot, each calculated strike, was a part of a larger plan. Humanity's strength was not just in technology, but in their ability to survive, adapt, and coordinate on a scale the Zelthari could not understand. Laura noticed a pattern in the enemy movements. "They are retreating in disarray," she said. "Their command structure is failing. If we push now, we can disable more of their fleet without even entering their formation." Jacob nodded. "Do it. Samuel, move the fleet into the interception grid. Daniel, continue the rail strikes. Timing must be perfect." Horizon Dawn and the other human ships moved into position. The kinetic systems fired again, hitting the retreating ships. One by one, they were shredded by precision strikes. The Zelthari were losing control of their fleet, and fear began to spread among their ranks. In the chaos, a single Zelthari vessel managed to fire a weapon at Horizon Dawn. The energy beam struck the ship's shield with tremendous force, causing alarms to blare throughout the bridge. Sparks flew as systems struggled to compensate. Jacob stayed calm. "Shields, at full capacity. Divert all power to front-facing defenses. Samuel, maneuver to bring them into the next rail strike corridor." Daniel adjusted the controls. "I've calculated the trajectory. The rail system will hit them in 3 seconds." The projectile struck precisely as calculated. The enemy ship was ripped apart in a blinding flash, leaving a trail of debris. Even the remaining Zelthari commanders began to realize the human advantage. "They are not like any species we have fought before," one of the enemy officers said in disbelief. "They fight in ways we cannot predict. They survive in conditions that would destroy us. How is this possible?" On Horizon Dawn, Jacob, Laura, Daniel, and Captain Blake watched as more enemy ships tried to escape. Each move the Zelthari made was countered with a combination of kinetic strikes, cyber interference, and human ingenuity. Laura typed rapidly, sending signals to disrupt the Zelthari command network. "Their coordination is breaking down completely. The fleet is essentially blind. They cannot communicate effectively. They cannot respond fast enough to our strikes." Daniel grinned slightly. "They assumed our technology was primitive. They assumed our defenses would be easy to break. They were wrong." Jacob spoke quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "Humans do not fight because it is easy. We fight because we must survive. Every human alive has ancestors who survived worse than this. And that strength is what they cannot understand." The Zelthari ships that remained attempted a last-ditch assault. Energy weapons fired across the void, seeking human targets. But the humans had anticipated this. Orbital defenses activated, deflecting the beams, while the Horizon Dawn maneuvered with precision, avoiding the most dangerous strikes. Jacob gave the order for a final strike. "Daniel, launch the hypervelocity projectiles at maximum capacity. Samuel, focus all fleet firepower on the remaining enemy vessels. Laura, maintain cyber interference. We end this now." The kinetic rails fired, faster and harder than before. The projectiles hit the enemy ships with devastating effect. Hulls shattered, engines exploded, and communications broke down completely. The Zelthari fleet was no longer coordinated. They had lost their confidence, their strategy, and their ability to fight effectively. For the first time in history, the Zelthari realized that an entire species could survive what they considered impossible. They had underestimated humans, assuming Earth's civilization was soft and fragile. They had assumed that humans could not operate under the pressures of a death world. Laura watched the chaos on the screens, shaking her head slightly. They had no idea what they were up against. They still don't understand. Humans are different. Humans survive. Jacob spoke over the comms to his fleet. "Hold your positions. Do not overextend. Let them panic. Let them realize that humanity does not surrender." The remaining Zelthari ships attempted to retreat again, but it was too late. The humans had predicted their path, calculated their weaknesses, and struck with precision. Every ship that tried to flee was met with projectiles or disabled by cyber attacks. On Earth, people were beginning to understand the scale of what was happening. Humanity had not just survived. They were actively defeating the enemy. They were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting because it was necessary to survive, because their species refused to yield. Jacob stood on the bridge of Horizon Dawn, watching the last of the Zelthari ships fall apart. "This is what they do not understand," he said quietly. "They have conquered many worlds, but they have never faced humans. And humans do not break." Samuel Blake nodded. "They will remember this. Every species that comes after will know what happens when you underestimate humans." Daniel leaned back, a small smile on his face. "It's not just our weapons. It's everything we've learned surviving on Earth. The lessons from storms, from earthquakes, from disease, and fire. Humans are built to endure, and that endurance is our greatest weapon." Laura typed a final series of commands, locking the enemy fleet in place. "They have no control now. They cannot regroup. This battle is effectively over. The question is, what will they do next?" Jacob looked out at the stars, where the Zelthari fleet had approached. "Next, they will retreat. They will tell their empire what happened, and the galaxy will finally understand the truth. Humans are not weak. Humans are not fragile. Humans are unstoppable when survival is on the line." The remaining ships of the Zelthari, seeing no hope of victory, began to retreat toward the edge of the solar system. They had never faced a species like humanity, and they had learned their lesson in hours. The humans had anticipated every move, countered every attack, and struck with precision. On Earth, celebrations were quiet but heartfelt. People watched as the remaining enemy ships left the system. Families hugged each other. Soldiers and engineers exhaled after hours of tense work. Humanity had survived, and more than that, they had won. Jacob, Laura, Daniel, and Captain Blake stood together, looking at the reports coming in from all orbital stations. The numbers were clear. The Zelthari fleet had been reduced by more than half in a matter of hours, with minimal human losses. Jacob finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "This is what humanity does. We survive. We fight. We endure. And we do it better than any species in the galaxy." Laura nodded. "They assumed weakness. They assumed fear. They were wrong. Humans do not surrender. Not today. Not ever." Daniel smiled, "and they will never forget it." As the night fell across Earth, the human fleet continued to monitor the retreating enemy. Every sensor, every weapon system, and every crew member knew the truth. This was not the end. There would be more challenges in the galaxy, but for now, humanity had shown the universe what it meant to face a species built to survive, and the Zelthari had learned a lesson they would never forget. When humans fight, survival is not just possible, it is guaranteed. The Zelthari fleet was in full retreat. What had been a massive, confident armada a few hours ago was now a scattered collection of damaged vessels, some barely moving, some sending desperate distress signals. For the first time in their history, the Dominion had faced a species that could not only survive their attacks but destroy them faster than they could respond. On Horizon Dawn, Jacob Hart stood at the observation deck, staring at the retreating ships. His face was calm, but inside, he felt the weight of what had just happened. A war that the Zelthari believed would last months or even years was over in less than a day. Humanity had not just survived. They had decisively defeated a galactic power. Captain Samuel Blake stood next to him, his arms crossed. "I never thought it would be this fast," he said. "They expected us to beg, to run, or to hide. Instead, we destroyed them." Jacob shook his head slightly. "They expected weakness. They did not expect a species that survives every day on a world that tests them at every turn. That is the difference. They fought us as they fought others, but they forgot one thing: humans do not surrender." Daniel Brooks, sitting at his console, allowed himself a small smile. "Our systems performed perfectly. Every calculation, every strike, worked exactly as we planned. And yet, it was more than just the technology. It was the people, the crews, the humans who built and operated these systems. They made all the difference." Laura Price tapped at her keyboard, still monitoring the enemy fleet. They are requesting a ceasefire. Every communication we receive is asking for mercy, for permission to leave without further attack. They finally understand that they cannot continue this fight. Jacob nodded. Then we give it. But on our terms. No humans were lost unnecessarily. No systems damaged beyond repair. We will not stoop to their arrogance. They will leave, and they will tell the galaxy the truth about humanity. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news of the Zelthari defeat was spreading rapidly. People could hardly believe what they were seeing. Footage of the battle, taken from satellites and live feeds, showed the enemy fleet being destroyed in mere hours. Ordinary citizens, soldiers, and scientists alike felt pride in a way that had never happened before. Humanity had faced an impossible enemy and emerged victorious. Families gathered in their homes, watching the feeds. Children asked their parents questions, wide-eyed with curiosity. Did humans really destroy their ships? One child asked. Yes, said the mother, holding her child close. We did. And we survived because humans never give up, no matter what. In the command centers orbiting Earth, the humans continued their work. Jacob, Laura, Daniel, and Captain Blake were still coordinating the final actions to secure the system. Every remaining Zelthari ship was accounted for, either disabled, destroyed, or in retreat. No human ship had been lost in the process. The efficiency and precision of the human response were remarkable. Send them a formal message, Jacob said finally. Make it clear. Earth is sovereign. Humanity is not to be attacked or provoked. They must leave our system and tell the galaxy what they have learned. Laura typed the message and transmitted it. The response was immediate. Acknowledgements from the remaining Zelthari vessels, confirming that they understood and would comply. It was an unprecedented moment. A species that had never before lost a war was now retreating in fear and respect. Jacob took a deep breath. They will remember this for centuries. The galaxy will know that humans are not weak. We do not yield, and we do not surrender. This is our strength. Daniel leaned back in his chair. And they will tell others. Every species that hears about this will know. If you declare war on humans, it will be over before it begins. On Horizon Dawn, the crew began organizing repairs and resupply. Even though the battle was brief, the adrenaline and tension had been immense. Crew members who had been trained to handle extreme stress now allowed themselves to relax, though they remained vigilant. Humanity's survival depended on constant readiness, even in victory. Jacob looked at his team, pride in his voice. You did well. Every one of you. Today, humanity showed what it means to be human. Not because of weapons or numbers, but because of resilience, courage, and the will to survive. Laura smiled. And they finally understand it. The Zelthari will go back to their empire and tell them the truth. Humans are not just another species to conquer. We are a force they cannot underestimate. Daniel nodded. They came expecting an easy fight. They underestimated our history, our biology, and our determination. And now they will learn a lesson they cannot forget. Captain Blake added. And the rest of the galaxy will learn it too. From now on, humans are not just a part of the universe. We are a species to be respected or feared. On Earth, celebrations were beginning, though they were quiet at first. Governments organized official acknowledgments of the victory. People went outside, looking up at the night sky, imagining the ships retreating beyond Saturn, carrying tales of a species they had assumed was weak. Ordinary people felt pride in their species, knowing that their ancestors had built and survived a world that tested everything. The Zelthari, back in their command stations far beyond the Sol system, were in shock. Their leaders had expected victory within hours. But instead, they faced devastation and humiliation. Messages flew across their networks, with officers arguing and asking questions they could not answer. How had a species they considered primitive destroyed a fleet that had conquered dozens of others? How had humans fought with such precision and strength? One Zelthari admiral, speaking to his officers, said, "They are not like the others. They do not fight for conquest, they fight for survival. And survival is stronger than any weapon we possess." Back on Horizon Dawn, Jacob and his team reviewed the battle reports. Every enemy ship had been accounted for. Every threat neutralized. Humanity's strategy had worked perfectly. Every strike, every calculation, every human decision had contributed to the victory. It was not just technology, it was humanity itself. A species built for survival in a world that demanded it. Jacob spoke quietly, thinking about the future. This is a turning point. The galaxy will see us differently now. But we must remember this victory came because of our strengths, not our arrogance. We survive because we adapt, because we endure, because we do not break under pressure, Laura added. And we must continue to learn. They will tell their empire what happened. They may try again. But we are ready. We always have been. And we always will be. Daniel leaned back in his chair, satisfied but still alert. Humanity is not just a species. We are a lesson. Every ship, every colony, every planet that hears this story will understand. Humans are unstoppable when survival is on the line. As the day ended, the stars over Earth were quiet again. The Zelthari fleet had vanished beyond the reaches of the solar system, carrying tales of humans who fought like no species had before. Humanity had proven its strength, not through aggression or conquest, but through survival, courage, and determination. On Earth, people returned to their lives, but nothing would be the same. Children would grow up knowing the story of the one-day war. Scientists and engineers would continue their work, inspired by what humanity had achieved. Soldiers and strategists would remember the tactics that made the victory possible. And every human, ordinary or extraordinary, would carry the pride of a species that could not be defeated. Jacob stood in the command center, looking at the empty space where the enemy fleet had been. Today, we fought, not because we wanted war, but because we had to survive. And we did. That is what makes us human, Laura nodded. They will tell others. Every story will carry our name, our strength, and our resilience. The galaxy will never forget humanity again, Daniel added, and we will continue to survive, no matter what comes next. That is our promise to ourselves, and to every generation that follows. As Horizon Dawn prepared to return to its standard orbit, Jacob looked out at the stars one last time. The universe was vast, full of unknown threats and possibilities, but humanity had proven that it could face anything. The one-day war had ended, not just with victory, but with a lesson that would echo throughout the galaxy. Humans were not weak. Humans were not fragile. Humans were survivors, fighters, and a force that no enemy could underestimate. And in that knowledge, humanity found not only pride, but hope for the future. A future in which the species would face every challenge, endure every trial, and prove to the universe again and again that survival was their greatest strength. The Zelthari would leave, humbled and defeated, but humans would continue, stronger than ever, ready for whatever else the galaxy might send their way. The war was over in a day, but the story of humanity's victory would last forever. And somewhere deep in the stars, the Zelthari whispered among themselves, realizing that from this day forward, any species that declared war on humans was already doomed to fail. For humanity, survival was not just instinct, it was destiny.